Hey everyone, I am here with Colin, who is one of the founders of Stash Property. And Stash is a platform that helps you find property. I use it all the time for my property developments, property investments. So if you're a first home buyer wanting to get into the market, an investor, or all the way up to a developer, renovator, this platform is going to save you a heap of time, and it's going to show you the pockets where best to buy. It does all of the past sales data, all this cool stuff, and it puts it into one platform, which speed things up like tenfold. And it's actually really affordable. I think Colin needs to put his prices up, but don't tell him I said that. It's a very affordable software, and I recommend it to my students. In this video as well, below, I'm going to put a link to a discount code. This is the platform that I use as part of my courses, and it's exceptional. I picked it after analyzing half a dozen different platforms, and I hooked up with Colin and the other founders, and they've done an exceptional job over the last couple of years tailoring this software to make it even better. And it's always going through changes. So thanks for jumping on, Colin, and I really appreciate it that you're on.
Easy as.
I'll hand it over to you. Show us how this bad boy works.
All right, let's have a look. So basically, I think in any property investment, getting access to the data is the most important bit. So just having that, there's so much data out there, but just bringing it all onto one platform. So when you're searching for property, everything's going to be at your fingertips. So when you're looking at any property investment, you're going to start with where should I be investing, and getting access to that data is key. So if you look at things like every suburb, being able to see, looking at the heat maps, looking at the prices of suburbs, obviously sitting in the middle of Brisbane here, looking at the different property prices and the different growth that properties have had. So this is just looking at the suburb medians, just being aware of that when you are searching for properties. If you find a property in a suburb that's more expensive, maybe look next door and start to branch out. This is just looking at medians. I've got suburb growth here. You see a lot of times where you're looking at what's the suburb done in the last 12 months. What this one's looking at is the growth over the last decade. So looking at suburbs with good bones, suburbs up here like Stafford, it's had 8% growth year on year on year for the last decade, versus other suburbs possibly going backwards.
Yep, absolutely.
So having that long-term growth, not just the last 12 months, is key. I've also had the last 12 months as well, so you can see that, just seeing the growth there of how every suburb's performed over the last 12 months. Sales volumes there, so making sure there's enough sales data in these suburbs. The more sales, the more accurate your stats are going to be. So if you're in markets and suburbs that you're looking at and there's not that much volume, the data is not going to be that credible. So it's really important to have a lot of sales volume. Suburb yield's pretty good in a lot of different places. So not in the middle of Brisbane, but you'll be able to see the yields by every single suburb. Another one we've got here is this IQR, which is looking at the range of property prices in a suburb. Really good for finding suburbs that have renovation potential. So if you look at a median price is the middle sale in a suburb. This IQR looks at the middle 50% of sales. So it's like an accordion. The wider that accordion, the wider the net of property prices in that suburb.
Yeah, so is green good? So big disparity?
Yeah, big disparity. There are some caveats with it where you might have a coastal town or riverfront where the accordion is going to be naturally wider. But if you start to go out, if you look, things like 8 Mile Plains, 65% Robertson. And if you go to some of those newer suburbs further south, you'll start to hit those new, greenfield estates. They're going to be really, really tight. Most every house is going to be exactly the same, pretty much. Not a lot of room for renovation potential versus some of the older suburbs going to have that bigger net. So it's just a really good way to sort of, if you're not familiar, you're buying an estate and just seeing different markets, just sort of, particularly if renovation is your game. I've got school scores there. This is the ICC score. So it's kind of like the socioeconomic advantage of the people that go there. Especially really great if you are looking in other areas, being able to see, because I would, if you're buying interstate, you might not be fully aware. You'll know your area where you live. And you'll start to see things like this. You've got Bulimba, the state schools basically in the top 10%. And then you go a couple of suburbs over, you're in the bottom 20.
Okay, so green's bad in this one.
Green's bad in this one.
So red's good, green's bad.
So you might not use it for suburb identification, but if you are picking between 2 suburbs or 5 suburbs, that might be just a data point you'd bring in just to lean one way or the other.
Yeah, nice. Okay. So just zoom out a little bit on that one, because I know school catchments in Brisbane are pretty phenomenal, how some areas are way expensive.
If you go down the corridor between Brisbane and the Gold Coast, there's certain pockets you'll know that those areas, the suburbs are on the lower socioeconomic side versus other parts of that region. You'll start to see where. So it's just another data point important to bring in.
Yeah, cool.
Vacancy rates there, again, everything's pretty good there. Owner occupiers, so the percentage of owners that live in an actual suburb. So if that's your strategy, or if that's part of your makeup, what you want to look for, just being aware of the makeup of that suburb. Population as well, just making sure there's enough people, enough market in those suburbs, so you can get an access to that and just see where the people are actually living. Social housing is another big one. That's been a more recent addition, and I've done this at a lot lower level than the suburb. So you can actually drill into pockets and see different parts of suburbs where the social housing is more prominent.
Yeah, so red is bad, I'm guessing, because I can
Well,
see
red
the
is,
Slacks
it doesn't
Creek.
have to be bad. It just means that there's more social housing in those
There's
areas.
more social housing. So I noticed you're in Slacks Creek for those people that are in Brisbane or not. There's a bit of social housing there.
Yeah, and if you look at certain suburbs that you might not be familiar that there is social housing. If I go up into here, you're looking at Carina, there's parts of that where there's like 10 or 15 streets that are nearly 50% social housing. So if you are looking at properties on the market and you're seeing the dots on the map and you see some really cheap dots in these areas, these are things that might be why.
Yeah, yeah. Especially if you're buying into state, right?
Correct. And yeah, there's so many different areas and different little pockets that you're totally not familiar with, and reasons why things might be cheaper, or you might find that bargain that's sitting there.
Yeah.
Affordability is another one. So this is, again, suburb level, just really quickly looking at the median prices of that suburb attached to the income or the average incomes in those suburbs. So it's an index between 0 and 100. The higher the number, the more affordable. Really great for if you're looking interstate again, or areas, if I zoom up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's more affordable, the cheaper the properties generally, but you got to make sure that the people living there do have the income associated with that.
Yeah, so I'm guessing the red ones are less affordable, green are more affordable as you get further out of the city. They become more affordable relative to the incomes.
That's it. So you'll sort of see, like, it does sort of naturally go out, but it's not an always guarantee. The further you go out, it's going to be more affordable because the people that live there might not have the income associated. So it's a really, really good point, especially looking into state. Market absorption is another key number here. So if I just go down, let's have a look. This is looking at, if there were 10 houses on the market, how much of the stock is being absorbed or being sold every single month. So you want a basically high number here. So if there were 10 houses in Brendale, 6 of them were selling every month.
Just that one below, because Brisbane Downs is where I am. Does that mean that's good or bad?
Well, it basically means that there's 10 properties on the market, 1 is selling. So you could, another way to look at it would be month's supply. We've just done it with absorption. I'll probably end up doing month's supply as well. But it's basically looking at, okay, 1 out of every 10 is selling versus Brendale, 6 out of every 10 is selling. So combine that with, say, days on market, which is the next one.
Yep.
Brendale's really, really low. So you'll probably see that market, the higher the market absorption, probably the lower the days on market's going to be.
Oh, there you go. So Brendale was better than Brisbane Downs.
In theory, but then you might bring in some other stats and it might be, the schools might not be as good, or there is no schools in that area, no government schools. The growth long-term, 8.3, 5.6. Brisbane, it's a much different area. But yeah, if you're looking at the suburb medians, and that'll be probably vastly different between those two.
Yeah, they definitely are. They've got very different attributes, even though they're next door.
Yeah.
One is very prestigious, Brisbane Downs, and Brendale is the poor baby brother. But
probably bigger blocks, right? So that's just having access to that. And the reason I show you the heat maps first is because when you are searching for any properties on market or off market, splitter blocks, whatever, just knowing in the back of your mind, I've still got access to all that data. I can bring it in just to run my sense checks over. The other thing we've got here with every search is around, we've got aerial imagery, really crisp. So if I bring in, let's just zoom down somewhere, some development that I know. So here's a property here. It's under development at the moment. If I just go back in time, I'll go back a few months, go back to March, say. So here's an old house with I think a granny flat out the back. Having access to this, just every couple of months, you're pretty much going to get new satellite imagery come in, or new aerial imagery come in. So it's good for precedent. So if you do find a property and you want to see what's actually happening around you, it's really important to know before you drive out and see it, actually, the neighbors don't look like what Google aerial imagery says. It's knocked down and there's 2 buildings there. So the difference between that and Google is going to be, vastly different. So it just
shows the existing house.
Yeah, really crisp imagery. It's really important just to see those precedents. And what's on top, like even things like solar panels, if you're buying property on the market, like when were they put on? You can go back in time and see that, and you kind of get an idea of when the pool was put in.
Yeah.
Data goes back to, I think, 2001 here in Brisbane. In other states,
Wow.
it goes back to 1960.
There you go. The roof wasn't rusty 20
Yeah.
years ago.
So you've got that, really important. Just saves you a trip driving out there. The zoning's there as well. So just the
Yeah,
zoning
or
overlays.
if you live interstate. Just while you're
Correct.
talking about that metro map, the aerial mapping, I was subscribed with Near Maps like 2 or 3 years ago, whenever that was, before your
Yeah.
platform came along.
Yeah.
And I don't know what a Near Map charges an individual, but we paid, I think it was $4,500 for Near Map for the year. That was
Yeah.
1 year, and it gets based on turnover and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So again, I don't know what an individual, what they'd charge you, but it's basically does what Nearmap
Yeah.
does. And it's, what do you guys charge? Like $50 a month for it
Yeah.
as an add-on, which
Yeah.
I think it's too cheap, but
It's really hard for
it's,
those companies because the data is so valuable and they sell it to government departments and things like that who can't afford to pay those things. But when they have to create products for investors and things like that, it kind of bastardizes their existing products. So that's why they sort of go through these other platforms to disseminate that data to this type of user.
yeah. I use that feature all the time.
Yeah, same.
Like every time I'm on there, I pretty much use that feature when I'm looking at a property to purchase, because I want to know what else is happening around the area normally. But I didn't actually consider like solar panels or pool install dates, but I do
Yeah,
frequently go back and use the previous
yeah.
imaging as well.
It depends on what you're doing. If it's you're buying it for an investment that you're going to do something to, a reno or something, then you want to know like roughly the age of certain things. But if you are knocking down, just having access to sort of precedents and seeing what's going on. So this is obviously new development. There's a couple around the corner here. You can sort of see, okay, when were these ones done, subdivisions, and just gives you a little bit more intel around what's happening around you.
I'm also a big advocate for suburbs in transition, and you're in, I think, Balimba there.
This is Norman Park, yeah, this one.
Norman Park, is it?
Yeah.
I'm a big believer of suburbs in transition. So in other words, people bulldozing houses and building new ones or doing substantial renos. So if you're buying in an area and you don't live in that area, which most of the time you probably won't if it's an investment.
Yeah.
If you see that there's houses getting bulldozed and there's new houses like coming online, you can see that it's a suburb in transition. Plus, it's also going to show you supply in those outlying suburbs, how much supply is actually coming online, like how many blocks of land is the developer delivering, how many houses are getting built, when are they likely to come online,
Yeah.
Versus trying to look at just data points of X number of approvals and you're trying to guess when they're going to come online.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
you've got the contours there as well, so you can sort of see any slope and properties and things like that really easily.
Yeah.
You've got the flooding as well, so flooding is going to be key, especially in Brisbane. So this whole area,
there you go, half that area floods.
pretty much. So you sort of just see when you're looking at dots on a map, listings and properties on the market, just bringing in that layer to see why is this one really cheap, and chances are flooding might be impacted.
So you mentioned zoning before and you skipped past it because
so zoning was there.
Zoning is a big one. Whether you're doing development or not, I still think it's important to know the ins and outs of zoning, or at least have a bit of an overview. You can obviously talk to a town planner to check, but knowing the zoning is very helpful. I know people that have fluked buying properties in good zones and their property over a couple of years ends up doubling in value while the rest of the market doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So makes a big difference as well. And also why certain properties are priced the way they are. They might be more of a premium because of the zoning.
And I think that's like a lot of investors, when they're looking at, they'll try and hone into that area or that council, become an expert at that council and that zoning in that council to really understand the nuances.
Absolutely. I'm a big preacher of that as well.
But you'll have this countrywide. So even if you are borderless and looking elsewhere, then these things is important to bring in. Bushfire is another one. So not as like certain areas, certainly in the middle of Brisbane, probably not as important, but
no bushfire in the middle of Brisbane.
Buffer zones, so that'll come in. Any bushfire zoning layers, probably not a much here. Biodiversity is another one.
That's just a big one that I turn on all the time.
Bringing in, so it's just probably thinking about it. Heritage is another one.
Just take your satellite imagery off.
So
just go to street. Not to tell you how to drive your own program. It just might load.
Probably nothing around me here, but that's just at a bigger area. You'll have that as well. So that's pretty much
Can
the back.
can you show us, Colin, the sales data features on this? Because I use those all the time as well. And actually, before you jump onto that, show us how you find properties off market. Another feature I use all the time.
Really good. So you can search on market, and I'll show you how to find really cheap deals. I'm basically trying to find the cheapest house in every suburb in the country. Off market, we use a bit for probably at a local level. So you're trying to find a certain suburb in a council that you're really familiar with, and we're looking for. Let's just do a council one. I'll do Norman Park. I'll do
your hometown.
Do what I'm looking at. You can search by zoning here as well if you needed to. So you're really familiar with that zone, you can bring that in. I'll leave it out just for this purpose. But basically what I'm trying to find here, so let's look at houses in Norman Park as an example, and let's look at post-war. So if you're a development trying to do knock down or subdivision out the back, bringing in, say, post-war is going to be important. So in my suburb, there is a lot of pre-war houses. Mine's 100 years old, so I can't do X and Y with it.
So post-war is what, 1940? Or
1940 odd. I'll just go 1950 just to bring it in anyway. But just to say, let's just see the houses that are post-war. If I search that,
that's a really cool feature. I actually didn't know you had that in there.
So a bunch of yellow dots. Okay, and that's way too many, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm not going to search by bedroom, but I could. I could search by area as well, area or street frontage. So as you get familiar with a certain council, you'll start to know the rules of what you can and can't do. So I might be looking for a certain size area or a certain frontage. I can leave them out. I can also search via splitter blocks. It's another big thing in Queensland where it's just showing me that the splitter blocks in a certain suburb. So splitter blocks are basically already on multiple titles. So these are properties here that are already on dual titles. And you can sort of see lot 200, 201. So basically, I could do potentially an easier subdivision on those properties. And there's 77 of them. But I could also search via dual access properties. So properties that are multiple streets. So that might be easier to put a granny flat in out the back or do something with so these properties here map onto 2 different streets. So you can sort of see that there if I zoom in on some. So it's a different type of thing. I'm on a dual access property. Can't do much with it because I don't have enough land and it's a pre-war. Or corner blocks might be a thing. So I'm trying to find a corner block that's a splitter block.
Yeah.
So depending on what you're after, it's like needle in a haystack. There's 15 or 13 million properties in the country, 15 million suburbs. If I'm trying to find something really specific, so this is any property, these aren't properties on the market, and you can sort of go through them and have a look. If I just zoom into one of them and go, this looks like not a bad, let me bring in the aerial and see, by the looks of this, the house is at the front, it's post.
That's a good one.
It's good splitter. And you look at the precedent behind it, there's two townhouses right behind it. And then you go in to do your due diligence on this property. So if I click on it, there's a lot of other data points that we've then got on this property. So we know it's a splitter, 1960, it's a corner, we think it's owner occupied. That's our sort of estimate of what we think it is. I'm going to add that to stash it to my pipeline. We're going to investigate it. And this is kind of where you start your due diligence. We've got a whole bunch of then stats here around social housing in the area. Relatively low. How far is the train station? How far is the bus stop? How far is the closest shops? What type of road is it on? Is it on a busy road versus a quiet road? So particularly if you're looking in other, not familiar with different states, the busy road, and especially it doesn't have to be a freeway we're talking about. This is about, main thoroughfares out of a city that are really, really busy. And so just having that knowledge is really important. Roundabouts is another one. People don't like to live on top of a roundabout. So road noise and things like that. And then schools, public schools, private schools, you've also got there. We also integrate to other data providers. So Price Finder, if you need the owner's name, that's the bit we don't have effectively, but other providers have that. If you needed it, you can plug in your Price Finder or plug in your national property data. You've also got your property description with your zoning. You've got before you dig. So if you wanted to get the documents for that to see the utilities, you just click a button. Later, that'll be there.
So handy. Thank you for putting that feature in. Did I tell you that one?
Yeah, you probably did. So we're trying to this is the nucleus of everything you should be able to do from here, whether in the platform or link out to. Before you buy is another great product. So that's a building and pest one. I just don't have it on this one, but if you are looking for a building and pest prior to purchase, before you buy sort of work across the whole country. And if you're buying somewhere where you're not familiar with, in there it'll come up with a bunch of different building and pest providers, and you pick the one, the costs will be there. You pick the best or the cheapest, whatever you want. Oh, wow. And you can purchase it all through the platform. And even it's really good even if the property's on the market, the reports get cheaper based on because other people have actually purchased them. So it's a really great product to explore. We've then got the timeline, so when the property was last transacted. This one hasn't been transacted in over 20 years.
Yeah, I use that one all the time.
The planning insights, this is another key one. So straight away, flooding is detected. So, and I'll show you that. We'll bring in the map. That's just a quick warning to go, okay, let's see what that looks
Well,
like.
that can be a bit of a pain in the butt if you go to develop it.
A huge pain in the butt with that one. So yeah, you can see why probably nothing's been developed.
Yeah, but you got the one at the back. But
I don't know how those two townhouses behind it, because you can sort of see, okay, there's that property. Does it flood? Yes, it does.
Yeah, there's ways around that, Colin. That's
you go back in time to say 2001.
Yeah,
those townhouses were still there.
Oh, there you go. They'll probably approve before the flood mapping.
I think everyone forgot about floods after 74. Then we all remembered back in 2010, 2011.
Yeah, so you may not be able to develop that, but I've got a few creative strategies, and no, I'm not going to tell you for free. You need to do the course to fully understand what's viable and what's not. But there are a few creative strategies to get around that flood mapping. You may not be able to do it on this one, but there are some creative strategies where you can buy a site like this where nobody thinks you can develop it. You pick it up for a couple of $100,000 cheaper or more, and then you end up banging out a couple of townhouses in the back with some creative strategy, and happy days, you make $500,000 or $1 million, and everyone else gets annoyed because they looked at the property thinking they couldn't develop it. I've done that with a couple, not necessarily flooding, but some other problems. Can you show us the other features, the market activity?
Yeah,
so let's do suburb profile.
Let's look at that. So in terms of the suburb profile, you can search any property, or you search any suburb. This is the type of data at a suburb level. Yeah. So any suburb, we can see its 1 year growth at 4.6%. What's its 3 year growth at 16.9%? 5 year growth at 70%. Its long-term compound annual growth is this 10-year rate.
Yep.
The higher that number, good bones. So, good, not a bad suburbs close to Brisbane. Stats about median. So you can see the median's growth over the last decade. Every provider's got different stats around, just different ways of crunching it. So just keep it consistent and when you're looking. But I'll link out to all these other portals. So anywhere there's other data, you can click through if you want to look at what does Domain think of this suburb. It'll just try and do a Google search to find that suburb page on Domain, and here's the stats, what they think. So it's just really quick to go, okay, don't trust anyone, like bring it all in, get all the information.
I trust you more than I trust Domain, with all due respect to Domain. So it's a free service.
Stats are stats, but the more, if you don't have enough data in when you're looking at any stat, they're still credible, it's still real, it's still a stat, but you wouldn't really trust it from an investment purposes. So this suburb has got 97 results in the last 12 months. Yeah. If you look at, that's over a 12-month period, if you break it down to 6 months, you're going to have half a number of sales to work with versus what the market's done in the last 3 months. You're going to get this jumpy line. It's not to say that the market went from 1.2 to 1.8 in the last month. It's just that it's only relying on 19 results to do it. So that's kind of why we broaden that out.
You are in a suburb that borders the Brisbane River as well. So
correct.
You're going to have skewed data from high sales on the river.
Yeah, exactly.
And same with coastal areas.
You can also, when you're looking at any suburb, you'll see the houses. I've done this, the units, I've done that. But just being able to drill down into that bedroom count is really important. So, like, what is a 3-bedder done in that market versus a 4-bedder? So just having that is really important. Just make sure there's enough data points in there. So 17 results, it's not as much. There should be a lot more 3-bedders at 50 results. So just having that at a bed count is really important. You get your suburb growth there, your rental yield. So it's pretty much steady across the board over the last decade. Vacancy rate's pretty steady. Days on market, so post-COVID or pre-COVID even, days on market's virtually gone to less than 30. So good data point.
Tight market.
Sales volume had that spike in COVID where a lot of properties did come on the market. Now back to its sort of normal at around the 100. Market absorption. So this is that one, in COVID, this place has gone nuts, much like the rest of Brisbane, where literally 1 in 2 was selling every month. Come post-COVID, went back down to sort of 1 in 5 and starting to pick up to that 3 out of 10 type thing.
So when you say 3 out of 10, that's what, in the first 30 days? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's just saying out of the stock on the market, 30% of it has been absorbed every month.
Okay.
The higher the number, the better. But just making sure there's enough stock on the market to make sure it's not just one sale. So that's suburbs. There's reports you can print out there and use for your own DD as well. Market activities, the other one. So really important comparables. Whether you're doing anywhere, just get as much comparable sales as possible. And you'll start to see markets within markets. So if I look at this as just 1K in the last 12 months, that's probably enough. I'll just zoom out a little bit. Let's just go to 2Ks.
Yeah, so this is one feature I use all the time. I mean, I use your platform for the majority of stuff I do, and there's other platforms that I use as well, Price Finder to an extent, but yours now is so much more tailored than a Price Finder, not to hang crap on Price Finder, but yours is so much more tailored now, and whether you did it because of me or other people, but everything, all the suggestions that I've had over the last, whatever it's been, 2 or 3 years, have all been implemented. And this one, especially looking at the sales data, is really important because you can find out, for example, and you can give us a tour. But what I use is the size of land. So you can search for size of land, number of bedrooms, zoning type is another one.
That's a key one. Yeah. Searching by zoning.
And it's going to show you whatever the list is, say 10 properties, and you can get a really fast idea on what the value of your property is going to be. So really quick. Before, you used to spend so much longer trying to work that out.
So one of the key things with this, you look at any suburb's going to have vast different numbers of sales and different price points. One of the things we've got here is this price breakdown. So this is looking at so there's 117 sales in this one, which crosses over to New Farm as well. But there's basically looking at the low, if I zoomed in and did that again, you basically the low number of sales between 650 and $1.3 million. The average area is 540, and it's going to most likely be a two-bedroom property. Yep. The high end of town. So this is the thing if you're looking at maybe adding a bedroom or doing a knockdown rebuild, just to see what the market looks like for your final product. So I know I can get into this market, and you see the grey, if I just zoom in here, there's grey properties there. So great. It means that there are properties at the cheap end of market. And the goal, like people are looking basically, can I find these properties, so like the grey ones that are close to, say, the red ones? So here's a one here for 1.17. The next street over, it's 2.2.
Well, probably so.
And then, but also looking at the data to go, is there a market for this? So I can get in low at a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, somewhere. And this is like half the sales are basically in this low to mid range, and half the sales are above it. The median's 1.661 here on this search. And just looking at the days on market, making sure that if you are looking at doing something, whether it's knockdown rebuild or adding a bedroom or whatever, or building a high spec product, what's the days on market look like for that thing? Because you'll find suburbs will be vastly different, where maybe the low end might be removing really quickly, but start looking at the high end, maybe these things are sitting on the market for a while. So just having that, splitting that data point and seeing, okay, the market, this looks pretty standard, like it's all the suburbs pretty much the same. The other point here is looking at the type of property. So how many 3-bedders have sold in the last 12 months, or how many 4-bedders have sold? So if you are building whatever you're building or renovating whatever you're renovating, making sure that final product there is a market for. And then you can see the medians for those different bed counts there as well. The agents, which agent should I be speaking to if I'm trying to build some relationships? So here's the agents. Probably should be speaking to, this one crosses over to New Farm, so you're going to have those ones over there. So just gives you that data, which offices, which agents should I be connecting with? And then you've got your search results there as well.
Yeah. And you can filter, I normally filter the search results by ascending or descending. So yep, the cheapest property first or the most expensive. And when I click on them, it shows me the location, where's the most expensive property located, because you've got the map as well, which I always used to use the Price Finder map. I found the mapping was easier because you have good pockets and bad or less expensive pockets in suburbs. So you want to know, well, if you've got a sale for 2 million, but in the street next door or 2 doors over, it's only 1 million. Why is that? Where are the expensive homes versus where are the cheaper ones?
So there's a property there, $650,000, few Ks from the city, right next to not much of a house. Still needs a bit of work.
There's a reason why it's 650,000.
Yeah, I think there might be a bit of water there as well.
Yeah, so it floods. It's not completed. It's not livable.
This is all about doing your market, doing your due diligence. So you're looking at what's the suburb doing. So you found a property, then you're looking at the suburb, then you're looking at the comparable sales. You can also bring in the development around it and just see what does it look like? What's actually happening around this suburb? I know they're getting a lot of dots on the map now, but if you look within 2 kilometers of this property, there's a 625 million money being spent on the residential part, and you can sort of see what dwellings, how many number of future dwellings. So if that future supply, what does that look like? I mean, this is really close to the city, really close to the proposed Olympics at the Gabba. Probably not, but you'll start to see the developments and how much residential spend and how much non-residential spend. So if I were to look at, say, the education, let's just see 194 being spent on a school. So if I just move across here, you'll start to see that there's a school somewhere around the corner here where they're proposed to spend nearly 200 million. Childcare. If I look at health,
there's 200 million getting spent on the school.
I believe it's the Gabba relocation, which may or may not happen now. Who knows? So I'll give me 100 days or 90 days.
So
just
you're pulling, so the platform's pulling data from different sources.
Yeah. So this is future, what's happening.
Yeah.
And then if I drill down to Resi, so there's apartments, and we've got 591 apartments within 2 kilometers of this property.
Okay. So
you
probably don't want to be buying an apartment here, or if you are, you want to be buying it cheaper than what they're releasing the new apartments for. So
and just give you just
market lift.
And this is probably not the greatest example because it's really in a city, but if you're looking in, the suburbs somewhere where you're saying, okay, I'm trying to build something, I might be doing a development, building townhouse out the back or whatever, just seeing what that future supply looks like. When is that stock likely to come online? So there's 200 dwellings in design and documentation, 400 in construction. And then you can sort of see when these properties are likely to come online. So a lot of them, 2026 last quarter.
Yeah, there you go. So you got another 2 years of undersupply.
Correct.
Which doesn't surprise me.
Every suburb's different, but then you have a full list here as well. This is a plugin as well as part of it, but you get some summary data, but you can sort of see, okay, what are those things? So if you were looking for, let's just look at the residential as an example.
Yeah, so this tool especially is good if you are looking to do developments, knowing what other developments are in the area, but also if you're having a look to see what the upcoming supply is, and you can really get what I was talking about before with suburbs in transition. When new stock comes on market and it's priced at a premium and people pay a premium, which they are at the moment for new properties, it ends up lifting or raising the value of all the old houses. Because if somebody is paying $2 million for a new 3-bedroom apartment and you just bought a secondhand one for half that price, then people are going to, and this has happened various different times with different properties, if you can see that wave coming of new expensive properties and you get into a secondhand one and it's way cheaper and that value equation adds up over time, those older surrounding properties end up being more expensive. They end up coming up because of the new properties in the area, and vice versa. If developers are building crap in the area and they're really cheap, it can have the opposite effect. It can bring the value of all the surrounding homes down. So like social housing, for example, if it's really, really cheap, untidy, unkept, or just developer just delivering crap products, which has happened in and around Brisbane in the last boom, and it'll happen again. There'll be plenty of crappy products being produced because building prices are high and developers will just need to get them out the door to investors. So
it's really great for precedents. If you are, say, if townhouses were your thing, being able to see, okay, here's been a proposed development for townhouses, but it's also good. You'll be able to see the contacts of the people involved in that development. So you might need who's developing that property.
Oh, well, I didn't even know you had that feature. That's awesome.
Just gives you those connections to go, okay, I need to speak to such and such in that local area.
Yeah, just borrow other people's consultants.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. It's great because they already know. They already got the knowledge in the area.
Great for precedents. So then you've got all that data. So you've done your DD. I've saved this to my pipeline. I've ruled this property out because it did flood or whatever. So I'll rule that one out. So
you don't need to give away all the secrets, Colin. We need to leave some for the next video.
Yeah, true. But that's a report you then print out, and it gives you all that stuff we just went through in a nice documented report. Everything that you've just seen there can be produced and then used as part of your due diligence.
Nice one. Just to wrap up, those people that are watching, if you are not one of my students or you don't have formal training, the tool, in my view, and people ask me what tools I use, and this is one of them, and there's a couple more, and this is an exceptional one. The tools are not going to make you rich. You're not going to jump on Stash and become a millionaire in 2 years. You might, but it's the person that's using the tool. So you've got all these amazing data points now. We never had this 10 years ago, 15 years ago when I started. We had to slug it out and do Google searches and spend hours and hours. So this fast tracks what you're doing, but the tool is not the key here. I mean, it definitely helps. It's the person behind the tool. At the end of the day, you're generally buying one property in a suburb, maybe a couple, or you're doing one development, one renovation. It's not the tool. The tool is just like the stash is just one tool on the tool belt. But if you're a crap carpenter, and I'm just going to focus in on the carpenter, if this is your hammer, you might have a hammer, chisel, saw, and it's having the tools, yes. And if you're a full-time carpenter, you're not going to be buying a $10 piece of crap hammer from Bunnings. You're going to be spending more money on it and have it something decent. But at the end of the day, you still need the skill to nail the hammer, use the hammer to put the nail in the piece of timber, and you need to know where it goes, the type of timber. So it's not just about the tools. They definitely help, and Colin and the team have done an exceptional job of stash, which I'm really impressed by, and it's come a long way in the last few years. But at the end of the day, you guys are driving it, just like I'm driving it. I'm going to get different results from you with the properties that I'm selecting, and I've got a different strategy as well. So it's about the person driving it, and you can spend hours on stash and get nowhere, or you can spend hours on stash and find exceptional deals that might make you 100 grand or 500,000. So thanks so much for your time, Colin.
I appreciate
any
it.
last minute departing words to fellow property investors and developers and renovators?
And I think someone described it as a gym, and knowing it's a good, you can go to the gym and really get no benefit from it. Private trainer and understanding the data is the key thing here. So you'd use this product for an hour, but if you don't know, what you're actually looking for and understanding will help you get educated what some of this data means so you can make the right decision.
Yeah, and people use your platform for different things. They might just use it just to check what properties sold for in the street, and you might be selling your property. Maybe you'll just check for school. So yeah, we all have different strategies. So just another tool on the tool belt, and an exceptional one at that. And I do think that it's very well priced. So if I were you guys, I'd be using it and trying to lock in a cheap price now before Colin and the team decides to put it up, because it seriously saves you a lot of time. We used to pay over $200 a month for RP data 15 years ago, and your platform is a couple $100 a month for so many more features. And now we have access to so much data for a fraction of the price. Like generally we couldn't, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where did you get days on market and Suburb analytic data? You were trying to fish them off realestate.com or wherever you were trying to get them from, and they probably weren't accurate. So yeah, data now is amazing, and you really put it into different features that make it so easy to interpret. So thank you for that.
Perfect.
I'll leave you to it. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Have a good day.